I've caught up in the back barn with the famous Ross Honsberger. Tell me why you're famous, Ross.
Well, I don't know about famous, but showing horses for a lot of years. Pretty much since I was born, we've been going to shows and with my family, and currently drive a Percher and Mare hitch now and do some shoeing for some other horse people and stuff like that. So I don't know about famous, but showing horses for a lot of years, I guess.
Well, very notable on the circuit, no doubt. Have you always been involved with draft horses?
Yes, my family's had Percherns, and I've worked for a couple people with some Belgians and some Clydes and stuff, but Percherns most of the time. Currently drive Percher mares, like I said, but kind of Percherns is where I've came from and what we've grown up with. So.
Are there differences, Ross, between working with different draft breeds? Are the Percherons different from a Shire, a Clydesdale, or a Belgium?
A little bit. The Belgians seem to be the biggest, most powerful, I guess I would say. Percherns are kind of the most athletic, and the Clydes are a little more docile and tend to be the prettier animal most of the time. They're famous for, the Budweiser Clydesdales, and so that's kind of what people know them for. But yeah, they're a little different style animal, but for the most part, a good horse is a good horse, and a smart horse is a smart horse. So.
Do you enjoy working with the Percherons the most?
Oh yeah, yeah. I personally, which I'm biased, I think they're the smartest of the three breeds. So I think they give you everything they got and are easier to work with than the other two breeds. So.
How do you delineate athleticism between the draft breeds? You said the Percherons tend to be a little more athletic or handy.
They'll tend to pick their feet up higher and carry their front end a little bit better and just look more. They can do it easier, I guess. Belgians are a little more thicker and heavier boned, and they're just not quite as. It's like a fast runner is a little lighter body, a little lighter bone, and can move faster than you're a big lineman for a football team or something like that. That's kind of a little bit the difference in the two styles of breeds. So.
Now, you just came out of the ring. What did you compete in?
A tandem hitch, which is one horse in front of the other hooked to a cart. And there was two of them in there. We ended up coming in second to a very good hitch, but it's a very. It may look easy, but it's one of the toughest classes to judge because that horse out there in front is just kind of out there by itself, and really all you have to control is the lines to keep it out there where you want it, and it can turn around in a second. So it's kind of tricky to drive, but it maybe looks easy, but it's one of the harder ones to drive, even harder than the 6s and the 8s because those horses are confined in there and kept together a little easier. So it's kind of a challenging thing to drive. But.
What are some of the differences of driving the horses in tandem versus two that are side by side?
In a team, you got tugs, which you hear, they keep them in and keep them from sliding out, so your horse is, like I say, more confined, and they can't really go out side to side. And a horse always usually drives together with another one. They're more comfortable with another horse, and so they usually drive easier, and everything kind of just stays together, and it's easier to steer. One horse can just turn around on you in a second and just go anywhere, so that's what makes it challenging to drive one by themselves. So.
How do you decide which horses to match up?
Usually you want to start with your biggest ones towards the back and your smaller ones towards the front. You need your bigger ones to pull your wagon or your cart. And usually the smaller the horse, the more athletic they are, the more they pick their feet up, the prettier they are. And generally they're the smartest ones because they need to be intelligent to lead that and do it for you. So that's generally how you do it. Your big ones at the back and your little ones at the front. It's kind of how they tend to stack them. And I don't know why it was decided, but usually you have your taller horse, like if you have a team that's not perfectly matched, your bigger horse is on your right compared to your left. So it's just kind of an old thing that we've done forever. And I mean, it's not strict order or anything, but it's just kind of the general rule, I guess. So.
How important is matching up mentality, behavior, and personality among the horses side by side?
Oh, not super. It's more their body style and how they drive than their personality, I would say. Their size, how well they mate, their necks and everything, just uniformity as far as looking at them is more important than their mentality and personality, I would say. So.
Can you put into words some of the nuances that you feel with the horses when you're driving? Because your main communication is through the reins and the bit.
Oh yeah, you can tell when a horse is having a good day or a bad day, if they're pulling hard or not pulling hard, or responding when you come around the corner. If you got to pull once or pull twice or whatever you got to do to make them come around. But you can tell, you know, when a horse is broke or not broke. The class we just went in, she's a young horse we put out in the front, and you can just tell when you kind of make a corner, you know, it really takes a while for it to come around, you know. More veteran horses, as soon as you kind of give a little pull, it just curve right around and do it nice. So you can definitely tell when there's, you know, you got a well-experienced horse and not, so.
Compared to other disciplines, which, you know, you really have a hind end that's engaged and they're powering off the hind end.
Right.
Ideally, how do these horses go in hand pulling a cart? Are they pulling, are they pushing,
oh
are
yeah,
they balanced?
it's all their hind end. I mean, we want them to ideally sit kind of down on their hind end and be light on their front end and pick their feet up high, but they're driven, everything's driven off their back end, and that's where they get their power. And we shoe our horses different. A regular light horse is shod more square because they don't need the power to pull something, whereas these draft horses are shod to keep their hind legs more together because they get more power when their hind legs are driving together. And so that's kind of where our power comes, and how everybody asks about the shoeing and why it's so different than a light horse. Well, that's because we have to build their hind end to pull a wagon to have more power, whereas a light horse is just more for riding and doesn't need that power to drive off their back end. So,
do you find that when you're driving 2, 4, or 6 horses, that there are times when the horses themselves really sync up and are in the zone and harmonious? And is there any way to put that into words?
No, not really. There's times, you know. I mean, you get out there and as soon as you start trotting, you know they're in it, they're together, and everything's right. And then there's other days where you just feel like nothing's going right. And there's lots of times where it feels great from the wagon, and your people on the sidelines are saying, it wasn't so good. And there's times it's the other way. You feel like, man, that was just terrible. And then they're just thinking it was great. So, you know, you just drive and try to do your best and hope it's the best. But there's definitely times where you come out and you think, man, that really went well. So,
Russ, what can we look forward to seeing you in over the weekend?
We got 6 tonight at 7 o'clock, I think it is, and we got a 4 tomorrow, and the big 6 on Sunday. We're competing, and there's 14 6-horse hitches, so we got a few more classes yet for the weekend, so it should be exciting.
Well, thank you so much for your time in between classes, and I look forward to speaking with you again during the weekend.
Sounds good.